Hello and welcome. This is an informal chat in conversation with Pilvi Torsti here at the ETF European Training Foundation. And today we have a very special guest here, Li Andersson, currently the chair of the Employment Committee of the European Parliament, but also with a very distinguished career in her native Finland before joining the European Parliament. As the Minister of Education, as someone working really in the Sanna Marin's government during the COVID years, when also Finland joined NATO, being a party leader, being a very prominent figure in those years when many decisions had to be taken. But clearly someone also with the Master of Social Sciences, dedication to human rights, social justice, and values aligned to the work of ETF and European Union. So Li, very much welcome.
Thank you, very happy to be here.
Tell us and our viewers who come also from outside the European Union, what does actually the Committee for Employment and Social Affairs does at the Parliament?
Well, in Parliament it is the committee that focuses on the labour market, so on legislation that is connected, for example, to workers' rights or workers' health, also in the workplace. In our competence is also the whole field of social policy, which of course ranges from everything to social inclusion, issues that have to do with social protection, but also, for example, the rights of persons with disabilities, these types of issues that we work with. So through our committee comes both legislative and non-legislative acts. So for example, in this mandate, I think we will be working on issues relating to AI in the working life, for example, also the anti-poverty strategy that EU now is going to do for the first time ever. So I say that the questions that mostly relate to the everyday life of ordinary Europeans are all in our committee.
How does it feel to be on the European level after such a sort of remarkable reform processes you saw through in Finland?
It feels really good. It's like going into the part of decision making that I haven't yet seen or experienced myself, because I've been in the parliament and I've been in government in Finland, but I have never been in the European Parliament before. I'm really motivated by the work that we do in the Employment and Social Affairs Committee. So I always say that I think that means there is a very strong mandate for the European Union to work a lot on issues connected to employment policy, and social justice.
Social justice. We were brought together with the 30th anniversary of the European Training Foundation. That has been worked in the education and training sector, definitely towards social justice, prosperity of the neighborhood and beyond of Europe. How do you see that in the future? What's the role of an agency like ETF and also European Union in this field?
Well, I think the role of education, and even more specifically vocational education and training, I think it's at the center for how we should react and respond to many of the big global trends that define, politics and our everyday lives, not just in Europe but also globally. The 4 examples I would mention is the green transition, and here, of course, vocational education and training is absolutely central. The second big transformation that's connected to the digital transformation and technological revolution, we already see a skills gap, a quite big one. So it's crucial that we, through education, can address this skills gap. The third big trend has to do with social cohesion, that we see all over the world at the moment: growing inequality, growing mistrust in institutions, inside societies. Education is the most powerful tool for increasing equality in society, so we need to use it also in this regard. And fourthly, on a global level, to build bridges and trust around common policy goals in a world where we are kind of being more and more divided all the time with growing tensions and this growing bloc mentality. I think we really need these overarching bridging themes. And looking at ETF's role, and then ETF has a role in all of these responses and in all of these fields and sectors, both in your work within the European Union, in the neighboring countries, but also on the global level.
We discussed today earlier about the education and training as a lighthouse that sort of can be also the uniting force. So that's what more or less what you are saying, that we no longer talk about soft diplomacy, that we actually talk about the common thematics that can bring us together.
Yes, and I think education is such a good theme to be the lighthouse because I mean, no matter where in the world you are, as a policymaker or ordinary citizen, you know, if you live in a rural area or a city, global north, global south, I think education is so special because it has the same role and function in every society. In every society, it represents the future and hope. So I really think what makes it interesting is that it's the same type of lighthouse everywhere, and therefore also a theme around which we can unite and work together.
You used to be the Minister of Education in Finland and now working in an important position on the EU level. Is there one or two takeaways that you probably take?
Well, I think a lot of takeaways because we worked a lot with the skills agenda. So that has very strong links to the agenda of the European Union in the upcoming years. We also did some very interesting things on evidence-based policy making, which I have referred to a lot, that there were these big research projects together with universities where we actually kind of financed projects to check how different policies actually work in education. And then you work with the researchers. And I think the third point I have brought with me from Finland is also kind of the role of education as an equalizer in society, because when I was the Minister of Education, I always used in these international events to say that a little more than 100 years ago, Finland was one of the poorest countries in Europe that had just gone through a civil war, because not many know Finnish history. And I think it's important to kind of say that in 100 years you can make that journey from that situation to like one modern welfare state where the people are at least being in research being considered the happiest in the world in just 100 years. And what was the most crucial thing for this transformation for the Finnish society? It was education.
I think this is a very important story, that actually it's active decision making at some points of history to provide education, quality education for all, and that countries really can change. It's a message from us that yes, fight for those things, go for them. There really can be a change that is massive, but it takes time.
Yeah, and that equality matters, because that was also kind of the key for the Finnish model, was this idea of having high quality education in structures that were common for all.
How do you see then the role of EU when we look at the neighboring countries and beyond in education and training?
Well, I think it's really important from several aspects. First, of course, I mean enlargement, because when the time is ready for enlargement, I mean, there is so many steps to be taken before that is kind of a reality. And focusing on education and training, I think, is one of the smartest parts to focus on, actually, because it's good for the economy, but it's also a way to kind of make sure that, you know, the standard in education or the standard in the labor market is as close as possible before then the integration of the whole to the internal market and so on. So I think from this point of view, it's important. I also have this feeling sometimes in the European Parliament. I think it's very inspiring to talk to people and representatives from the neighboring countries to the EU that I think have a much clearer analysis of the role of the EU than many people in the current EU countries have today.
Looking at then the future, so we deliberately decided at ETF, we look back 30 years, we come to present, and we look to the future 30 years. So reflecting the past, envisioning the future. How do you see the future of education and training at large, and also what perhaps would be your greetings to ETF for this future?
Well, as a part of my vision for the future at least, linking also, I think, to the changes that needs to happen to the economic model to be able to address the ecological crisis. I would say, like, I think, you know, education and knowledge, so not just education but also research, should be a bigger part of our economies and societies. Like, for me, it means more people learning, more people working in education, knowledge production, research, because we need more and better ideas, I think, not more and more things to consume. I also hope that in the future we have really invented and found the solutions, making sure that when we talk about the right to training for everyone or to reskill and upskill, that also is reality for everyone. We have so many human beings whose potential we are not fully realizing at the moment. I mean, in some countries, some sectors, you even have a gender gap still. In other sectors, we also have groups, for example, people with disabilities, where we should absolutely strive for increasing their participation in the labor market. And education and training can be a tool for, is the tool for that. But we also need to make sure that the way education is done responds to the needs that we have for very different learners. And I also hope that education has been a tool to kind of increase trust in the institutions that we need to be able to trust, no matter if we are, you know, right or left or young or old. Being able to share trust in certain fundamental democratic institutions, or, for example, in independent news, is something without no democratic society can function. And hopefully in the future we have also been able to teach media literacy in schools in a way that makes us more equipped to also function as citizens in a digitalized society.
What about ETF? What's your wish for ETF for the coming 30 years?
Well, I wish that ETF can grow bigger and more influential. Because, as I said, I really think education can be one of those uniting themes that we desperately need if we want to kind of save multilateralism in this world, which I surely hope. So I see it, at least, I mean, especially if we think about the future. So there might already have happened a new enlargement. So the ETF working with supporting member countries, of course, but also taking a bigger role on the global level, working together with the other actors in the EU so that we have kind of one strong EU policy and vision for how Europe wants to create balanced partnerships and cooperations in the world through education.
And now we go to a tradition of In Conversation with Pilvi Torsti, but we have to do it today a little bit with an improvisation, because we have a great question for you from our previous guest, from the Ombudsman, Emil O'Reilly, with whom we had a great conversation. But I have to tell her that her handwriting is so unique that I have a difficulty with making sure that the question is correct. So I'm going to ask something that she really said, which I thought was very powerful. She said how we really, in the EU, have to make sure that we use our power correctly for the citizens, for the benefit of the citizens. What would that resonate in you?
For me, it resonates very much, I think, with discussions we've had also in my committee about this next mandate, that there is now an expectation, I think, from the part of the citizens for EU to also to be able to address, among other things, the issues that were the two main reasons for people to vote, that were directly connected to the difficulties many have had with rising cost of living, their economic situation. So for me, it means that there is an expectation from the part of the citizens for the EU to be strong also in social agenda and labor market agenda. And we are going to see how strongly this will be actually at the agenda of the next Commission. At the moment, there is more talks about competitiveness and security than about the social agenda. But our message has been that if the social agenda is not strong enough, we can forget about both competitiveness and security. So this would be my main message in regards to this.
That resonates here at ETF in a sense that we always say unless there is the skills and education and training agenda, it's hard also to get results. So now it's your turn to leave a question for someone we don't know who that someone is. Perhaps something related to EU, to the ETF's work, but up to you.
All right. Like that.
Thank you very much. And with this, I think we can conclude that so more education and training as a lighthouse and bringing together in these complex geopolitical times. And that's the important role that also then EU and ETF will have to play.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Li Andersson, for being with us today. Thank you so much, Li, and really good luck in your very demanding, but I believe also a job of your sort of passion and commitment. And we've seen you've had results in your other positions as the Minister of Education in Finland. So we look forward to coming years into EU Parliament and as the chair of the Employment Committee there. So this was In Conversation with Pilvi Torsti with our great guest, Li Andersson. Till next time, bye-bye.